The console beeped 3 times before Lieutenant Amanda Shaw noticed it. She had been staring at the same star chart for 2 hours, her coffee long gone cold. The horizon's edge drifted through empty space, weeks away from the nearest colony. This sector had nothing interesting. No planets worth studying, no resources worth mining, just endless black void dotted with distant stars. But now, something was different. Amanda leaned forward and pressed several buttons. The signal came again. Not random noise from a dying star, not interference from the ship's engines. This was structured, deliberate, mathematical patterns woven together in ways she had never seen before. "Captain, right to the bridge," she said into her communicator. Her voice stayed calm, but her hands shook slightly as she worked. "You need to see this." Captain Daniel Wright arrived within minutes. He was a tall man with gray starting to show in his dark hair. 20 years in space had given him the kind of calm that came from seeing both wonders and disasters. He stood behind Amanda's station and studied the readings over her shoulder. "What am I looking at?" he asked. "A signal, sir, coming from grid section 47 Alpha. It's been broadcasting for a while, maybe years based on the degradation pattern, but it's definitely artificial." Daniel felt his pulse quicken. First contact protocols rushed through his mind. Humanity had been exploring space for 60 years and found exactly nothing. Ruins on dead worlds, chemical traces that might have been life a billion years ago. But no one had ever received a signal from another living civilization. "Can you decode it?" he asked. Amanda shook her head. "It's not like anything in our database. The mathematical base is similar to ours, but the structure is completely alien." "Wait." She froze, her fingers hovering over the controls. "Sir, there's something else. Emotional frequencies embedded in the carrier wave." "Emotional frequencies? What does that mean?" "I don't know. But if I had to describe it..." Amanda paused, searching for words. "It feels desperate, like someone screaming for help." Daniel straightened up. "Wake Commander Hayes and Dr. Morgan. Tell them to get to the briefing room. And Amanda, keep this signal locked. I want to know everything about it before we broadcast anything back." 30 minutes later, the senior staff sat around the briefing table. Commander Peter Hayes looked annoyed at being woken from his sleep shift. Dr. Lisa Morgan, the ship's lead scientist, seemed fully alert despite the early hour. She stared at the data streaming across her tablet with intense focus. "It's a distress call," Lisa said finally. "I'm almost certain of it. These patterns here repeat every 17 minutes. That's a standard mathematical constant in any base numbering system. And these frequency modulations match what we might use to convey urgency." Peter crossed his arms. "Or it could be automated. Some probe left behind by a civilization that died out centuries ago. We shouldn't jump to conclusions." "Then we investigate," Daniel said. "How far to the source?" 3 days at maximum speed," Amanda replied. She had joined them in the briefing room, unable to leave the signal alone. "The source is in an unexplored system. No previous surveys. No Earth ships have ever been there." Peter leaned forward. "Captain, we need to think about this carefully. Our mission is exploration and survey work. We're not equipped for first contact. We should report this to Earth Command and let them send a proper diplomatic vessel." "That would take 8 months," Lisa countered. 4 months for our message to reach Earth. Another 4 for a ship to get here. If someone needs help, they might not have 8 months. "We don't know if anyone needs help," Peter insisted. "For all we know, approaching this signal could be dangerous. It could be a trap. Some species might not appreciate us showing up uninvited." Daniel listened to them both. Peter was right about protocol, but Lisa was right about time. He had spent his entire career following regulations, making safe choices, keeping his crew out of danger. Yet something about this signal bothered him. The emotional frequencies Amanda mentioned. The desperate repetition. If this was a cry for help, could they really ignore it? "Set course for the signal," he ordered. "But we go in careful. Weapons ready, shields up. At the first sign of danger, we jump back to safe distance." Peter looked like he wanted to argue, but he nodded. "Yes, sir." The next 3 days passed slowly. Amanda worked constantly on the signal, managing to decode fragments. What she found disturbed everyone. The message contained coordinates, star charts, and images of a world under attack. "There are at least 50 different layers to this broadcast," Amanda explained during another briefing. "It's not just one message, it's dozens, maybe hundreds, all compressed together. Each layer tells part of a larger story." She brought up an image on the main screen, a beautiful world with blue oceans and strange crystalline continents. Then another image, the same world, but now massive ships filled the sky. Cities burned, the oceans boiled. "This is what they're showing us," Amanda continued. "Their world, their people, and whoever is attacking them." Lisa had been analyzing the technical data embedded in the signal. "This civilization is old, very old. Their mathematics are more advanced than ours. Their physics understanding is centuries ahead. They have technology we can only dream about." "Then why are they losing?" Daniel asked. "Because their attackers are even more advanced? Or because they're outnumbered? Or both?" Lisa pulled up more data. "But here's what really concerns me. This signal has been broadcasting for at least 200 years, maybe longer." The room went silent. 200 years, Peter said quietly. "Then they're already dead. We're chasing a ghost." "Maybe," Lisa agreed. "Or maybe they're still fighting, still hoping someone will hear them and come." Amanda cleared her throat. "There's something else. Something I just decoded an hour ago. The signal contains a list, names of other civilizations, coordinates for their homeworlds. I checked them against our star charts. At least 20 of these civilizations are known to us. We've detected their radio signals, seen evidence of their space stations and colonies." "They're more advanced than us?" Daniel asked. "Much more advanced. Some of them have been spacefaring for thousands of years." Peter saw where this was going. "They received this distress call, too." "Yes," Amanda confirmed. "And none of them responded. None of them came to help." The implications settled over the room like a heavy blanket. An ancient civilization had been crying for help for 2 centuries. Dozens of advanced species had the signal. All of them had the technology to respond. All of them had the power to make a difference. And all of them had chosen to do nothing. Daniel stood and walked to the view screen. The stars streaked past as the horizon's edge rushed toward its destination. He thought about his orders from Earth Command. Survey and explore. Avoid unnecessary risks. Return with data, not heroic stories. But he also thought about that signal. The desperate repetition. The images of a dying world. 200 years of calling for help into an empty universe. "We continue on course," he said. "Full speed. Whatever we find when we get there, at least we'll know we tried." Peter started to protest, then stopped. He recognized that tone in Daniel's voice. The decision was made. Lisa smiled slightly. "I'll prepare first contact protocols, just in case someone is still alive to meet us." As the meeting ended and the crew returned to their stations, none of them knew they had just made the choice that would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. They were flying toward a war, toward an empire that had conquered half the known stars, toward a decision that no other species had been willing to make. They were going to answer the call for help that everyone else had ignored. The horizon's edge dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. What they saw made everyone on the bridge go silent. Massive warships filled the orbital space around the 4th planet. Each one was 3 times the size of Earth's largest carriers. Dark metal hulls reflected the system's sun like mirrors of death. They moved in perfect formation, creating a blockade that nothing could pass through. "Captain," Lieutenant Greg Turner said from the tactical station, his voice tight. I count 47 capital ships. Unknown class, unknown weapons capability. They're definitely military. Daniel gripped the arms of his command chair. Life signs on the planet? Amanda worked her console quickly. Yes, sir. Concentrated in one location on the northern continent. Looks like a city. It's protected by some kind of energy shield, but the readings show it's failing. Maybe a few days left before it collapses completely. And those ships? Daniel pointed at the screen. They're waiting, Greg said. Just sitting there, like cats watching a mouse hole. Dr. Morgan studied her scanner data. They're jamming all communications from the planet. Nothing gets in or out, but our sensors can pick up energy signatures through the interference. That city down there is still fighting, still alive. Peter Hayes stood beside the captain's chair. We need to leave, right now. Those ships haven't detected us yet because we came in on the system's edge. But if we move closer, they'll spot us instantly. And we cannot fight 47 capital ships with one exploration vessel. Daniel knew Peter was right. The smart move was to jump away, report to Earth Command, and let someone else handle this. But his eyes stayed fixed on that planet. On the city full of people who had been broadcasting for help for 200 years. Can we get past them? He asked. Greg looked up, surprised. Sir? Can we sneak past that blockade and reach the planet? Greg hesitated, then started running calculations. Maybe. We have experimental stealth systems that Earth Command wanted us to field test. They're designed to hide us from asteroids and natural radiation while surveying. But military sensors are different, more sensitive. What are our chances? 20%. Maybe 30 if we approach from the planet's shadow and time it perfectly when those ships rotate their patrol pattern. Peter grabbed Daniel's shoulder. Captain, this is insane. Even if we reach the planet, what then? We can't evacuate an entire city. We can't fight off that fleet. All we'll accomplish is getting ourselves killed. Daniel looked at his first officer. They've been calling for help for 200 years, Peter. 200 years. And no one came. Dozens of civilizations heard them and did nothing. Are we going to be the same? We're not the same. We're weaker. We just got to space 60 years ago. Those other civilizations had good reasons not to respond. They knew they couldn't win. Maybe, Daniel said quietly. Or maybe they were just scared. Maybe they chose to be safe rather than right. The bridge stayed silent. Every member of the crew heard the conversation. They all knew what was being decided. Lisa Morgan spoke up. I've been analyzing that blockade fleet. Their design philosophy is similar to some ships we've encountered before. I think they're from the Catharn Empire. We've detected their signals from our long-range probes. They control at least 60 star systems. They're a conquest-based civilization. They take worlds by force and strip them of resources. Great, Peter muttered. So we're thinking about picking a fight with an empire that controls 60 star systems. That makes this so much better. I'm not picking a fight, Daniel said. I'm answering a distress call. Navigation, plot a course through that blockade. Use the stealth systems. Time it for the patrol rotation. Tactical, keep our weapons cold. I don't want to give off any energy signatures that might reveal us. Yes, sir, Greg said, though his hands shook slightly as he worked. The horizon's edge crept forward. The stealth systems activated with a low hum that resonated through the hull. On the main screen, the enemy fleet grew larger. Each ship bristled with weapons. Any one of them could destroy the horizon's edge with a single shot. Amanda monitored communications. They're broadcasting to each other in a language I don't recognize. Wait, I'm getting something else. The planet is trying to punch through their jamming. Short bursts, definitely directed at those ships. What are they saying? Daniel asked. I think they're surrendering, offering to open their shields if the attackers promise to spare civilian lives. The bridge crew exchanged looks. After 200 years of calling for help, after holding out this long, the people below were finally giving up. "Sir, we're approaching the critical point," Greg said. "If their sensors are going to detect us, it'll be in the next 30 seconds. Everyone held their breath. The horizon's edge slipped through the gap between two massive warships. They were so close that the enemy hulls filled the entire view screen. Daniel could see individual weapon ports, each one capable of tearing his ship apart. 20 seconds. 15. 10. "We're through," Greg whispered. "They didn't see us." The planet loomed ahead. From orbit, they could see the city clearly now. Crystalline structures that caught the light and threw it back in rainbow patterns. But many of those structures were broken, shattered. The shield protecting the city flickered and sparked. "Finding a landing site," the pilot Jake Sullivan said. He was young, barely 25, but he flew with the confidence of someone much older. "There's a clear area near the city center, looks like a park or plaza." "Take us down," Daniel ordered. "Amanda, try to make contact. Let them know we're here to help." The ship descended through the atmosphere. As they dropped below the cloud layer, they got their first clear view of the Valurian people. Figures moved through the streets below. They weren't humanoid. Their bodies seemed to be made of living crystal, reflecting light as they moved. Some were helping others into buildings. Some were gathered in groups, as if saying goodbye. Amanda's console chimed. "Contact. I'm receiving a response. It's in their language, but the translation software is working on it. Give me a moment." The horizon's edge touched down in the plaza. The landing struts compressed, and the engines powered down. Through the view screen, they could see Valurians gathering, dozens of them, then hundreds, all staring at the ship that had fallen from the sky. "Translation complete," Amanda said. "They're asking who we are. They want to know if we're from one of the civilizations they contacted, the Thessian Republic, the Mordani Collective, the Zelvan Unity. They're listing names. Sir, they sound so hopeful." Daniel stood. "Tell them we're from Earth. Tell them humanity received their call for help, and tell them we're here." Amanda transmitted the message. They watched the crowd below. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the Valurians began to move, not away from the ship, toward it. They pressed close, their crystalline bodies glowing brighter. "They're asking how many ships we brought," Amanda said, her voice catching. "They want to know when the fleet will arrive to drive off the Catharn." Daniel closed his eyes. This was the moment he had to tell them the truth. "Tell them we came alone. One ship, that's all." Amanda hesitated, then sent the message. The crowd below seemed to freeze. Then slowly they began to back away, not in fear, in confusion, in disappointment so deep it was visible even through alien features. "They don't understand," Amanda said. "They're asking why only one ship. They're asking where the others are." Peter put his hand on Daniel's shoulder, not in anger now, in sympathy. "What do we tell them?" Daniel stared at the crowd, at these people who had waited 200 years for rescue, who had watched their world burn, who had finally decided to surrender because no help was coming. "Tell them the truth," he said. "Tell them that 50 civilizations heard their call. Tell them that all of those civilizations chose not to come. Tell them that we're the only ones who answered because we're too young and too stupid to know better. And tell them that even though it's just one ship, we're not leaving them to die alone." Amanda sent the message. The silence that followed felt like it lasted forever. Then one of the Valurians stepped forward, taller than the others. Their crystalline body glowed with a deep blue light. A voice came through the communicators, translated, male-sounding, though Daniel had no idea if Valurians even had genders. "I am Sev-An, Elder Coordinator of the Valurian people. You say you are from Earth. We have never heard of your world. You say you came alone. That makes no tactical sense. You say the others chose not to come, that we already knew in our hearts." The voice paused. When it continued, it carried so much pain that several crew members had tears in their eyes. "Why did you come? You are too weak to save us. Your presence here will only mean your deaths alongside ours. Why would you make such a choice? Daniel walked to the communication station. He didn't know if Sevan could hear him, but he spoke anyway. Because you called for help, and someone should answer. The meeting room deep beneath the Valurian city was old. The walls were made of crystal that pulsed with soft blue light. Elder Sevan sat across from Captain Wright and his senior officers. Around them, other Valurian leaders watched with what Daniel had learned to recognize as cautious hope. Your ship cannot defeat the Catharn fleet, Sevan said. His translated voice was gentle but firm. Even if your entire world sent every vessel you possess, the numbers would not be enough. The Catharn have conquered 62 civilizations. They have thousands of ships, millions of soldiers. They are a machine that consumes worlds. Then why are they waiting? Daniel asked. Your shield is failing. They could finish this in days. Why the blockade? A female Valurian named Kirel answered. She was smaller than Sevan, her crystal body shimmering with green light. They want us to surrender willingly. It amuses them. They have done this to 40 worlds before us. They surround. They wait. They let despair do their work. Then when a civilization finally gives up, they take everything. Resources. Technology. Sometimes they take the people too, as slaves. Dr. Morgan leaned forward. But you've held out for 200 years. That's longer than any human nation has existed. Why now? Why were you about to surrender today? Sevan's light dimmed. Because we are tired. Because we have sent our call for help to every civilization we knew and none came. The Thessian Republic told us they could not risk war with the Catharn. The Mordani Collective said interference would violate their principles of non-contact. The Zelvan Unity claimed they would consider our request and then went silent. 50 civilizations, 50 refusals. Not all refusals, Peter said quietly. Some just never answered at all. Which is worse, Kirill replied. At least a refusal acknowledges we exist. Silence means they could not even be bothered to tell us they would not help. Lieutenant Karen Price, who served as the ship's diplomatic officer, spoke up. What about your allies? Your historical records show you had trading partners. Friends among the stars. We did, Sevan confirmed. 7 civilizations we called friends. When the Catharn came, we contacted them first. We begged them for military aid, or for ships to evacuate our people, or even just for supplies to help us fight longer. What did they do? Karen asked. They cut all communications. They pretended we did not exist, because helping us would mean the Catharn might target them next. They chose to sacrifice us to buy themselves time. The room went quiet. Daniel felt sick. He tried to imagine Earth in that situation, calling for help and being ignored. Watching former friends turn away, facing extinction alone. We need to see what we're up against, he said finally. The blockade, the enemy's capabilities, everything. Sevan gestured, and the walls of the room changed. Images appeared showing the Catharn fleet in detail, the massive warships, the smaller attack craft, the troop carriers waiting to deploy ground forces. Greg Turner studied the formations with a tactical eye. They're overconfident. Look at those patrol patterns. They're sloppy. They think nothing can threaten them, so they're not being careful. Because nothing can threaten them, Kirel said. We have tried everything. Our weapons cannot penetrate their shields. Our fighters cannot outrun their interceptors. We are simply outmatched. Maybe, Daniel said slowly. Or maybe you've been fighting them the way they expect to be fought. Lisa Morgan caught on first. Conventional warfare, fleet against fleet. You've been trying to match their strength. What other way is there? Sevan asked. Unconventional warfare, Peter said, and Daniel heard the shift in his first officer's voice. Peter had been against coming here, but now that they were here, he was committed. Guerrilla tactics, Hit and run. Make them think their own shadows are attacking them. Jake Sullivan grinned. We're not going to fight fair. Fair? Kirell's voice carried confusion. I do not understand this word in this context. Fair means matching strength against strength, Karen explained. Following rules, fighting with honor. But humans learned a long time ago that when you're weaker than your enemy, honor will get you killed. You have to be smart instead. Daniel stood and approached the holographic display of the Catharn fleet. We can't beat them in open battle, but we don't need to. We just need to hurt them enough that they decide you're not worth the trouble. The Catharn do not retreat, Savan said. They have never abandoned a conquest. Then we'll be the first to make them think about it. Daniel turned to his crew. Engineer Cole, you're with me. I want to see what kind of technology the Valurians have that we can work with. Dr. Morgan, study their energy systems. I want to know if we can combine our technology with theirs. Turner, analyze their defensive positions. Find me every tunnel, every underground passage, every place we can hide and attack from. He looked at Sergeant Nicole Adams, the ship's security chief. She was a compact woman with scarred hands and hard eyes. Adams, I need you to train fighters. These people have been passive victims for too long. Time to teach them how to bite back. Nicole stood. Yes, sir. How many volunteers can we get? Savan and Kirell exchanged what Daniel had learned was their version of a surprised look. You want us to fight? I want you to survive, Daniel said. And survival isn't going to come from sitting here waiting to die. It's going to come from making the Catharn bleed for every inch of ground they take. Over the next 3 days, the humans worked like they had never worked before. Richard Cole, the ship's engineer, sat with Valurian scientists and discovered that their energy manipulation technology was centuries ahead of anything Earth possessed. The Valurians could bend and focus energy in ways that seemed like magic. Look at this, Richard said excitedly during a briefing. He held up a small device. This is a Valurian energy cell. It puts out enough power to run our entire ship for a month, and they can make them focus that energy into a beam that will cut through Catharn armor like paper. Why haven't they been using these as weapons? Peter asked. Because they're scientists, not soldiers, Lisa Morgan answered. She had been working with the Valurians non-stop. Their entire civilization is built around research and art. They've never developed military technology. Even their shields were designed for asteroid protection, not warfare. Then we'll teach them, Daniel said. What else do we have? Greg Turner brought up a map of the city. The Valurians built their capital over a network of ancient lava tubes, hundreds of tunnels crisscrossing under the entire region. Some of them extend for miles. The Catharn don't know about them because they've never bothered to do deep scans. They think the Valurians are trapped in this one city. But they're not, Jake Sullivan said, seeing where this was going. They can move underground, pop up anywhere. Exactly. We can use those tunnels to stage ambushes, hit them where they don't expect, disappear before they can respond. Nicole Adams had been working with Valurian volunteers in a training area. She looked exhausted but satisfied. I've got about 200 volunteers. They learn fast, really fast. Turns out they have some kind of telepathic connection that lets them coordinate without speaking. Once I teach one group a tactic, they can share it with others instantly. How are they handling the training? Daniel asked. They're scared, but they're angry too. 200 years of hiding will do that to you. They want to fight back. They just needed someone to show them how. Daniel nodded. What about weapons? Richard smiled. That's the fun part. We're combining human projectile weapons with Valurian energy systems. I'm calling them hybrid pulse rifles. They fire a physical round wrapped in an energy field. Goes through Catharn shields because the shields are designed to stop energy weapons, not solid matter. but the energy coding means the round hits harder than anything the Catharn have encountered. How many can we make? We've already made 500. The Valurians' manufacturing systems are incredible. Give us another week and we could arm thousands. We don't have a week, Peter reminded them. The shield is failing. We've got maybe 4 more days before it collapses completely. Daniel stood and looked at his crew. They were tired, scared, but they were also determined. These people had flown across the galaxy to answer a distress call no one else would answer. They had walked into a war they couldn't win, and now they were preparing to fight anyway. Then we work with what we have. 4 days. We train as many fighters as we can. We position weapons in the tunnels. We prepare ambush points throughout the city, and when the Catharn come through that failing shield, we show them that the Valurians are not victims anymore. Sevan had been listening quietly. Now he spoke, his voice carrying across the room. You understand this will not save us. Even if we hurt them, even if we make them bleed, they will still overwhelm us eventually. The best we can hope for is to die fighting instead of die surrendering. Maybe, Daniel agreed. But here's the thing about humans. We have a bad habit of doing impossible things just because someone told us we couldn't. So let's say we do make them bleed. Let's say we hurt them worse than they've ever been hurt before. What happens then? They will be angry, Kirel said. Good. Let them be angry. Because angry enemies make mistakes. And when they make mistakes, we'll be there to punish them for it. Daniel looked around at both humans and Valurians. We came here to help. That help might not look like rescue. It might look like teaching you how to fight. But I promise you this. When the Catharn come through that shield, they're going to learn that the Valurians are not alone anymore. And they're going to learn that humans don't abandon their friends. Sevan's crystal body glowed brighter. Friends. We have not had friends in a very long time. You have them now, Daniel said. So let's get to work. The shield failed at dawn on the 4th day. Daniel stood in the underground command center, watching the displays as the protective energy field that had guarded the Valurian city for 2 centuries flickered one last time and died. Above ground, the Catharn fleet moved immediately. 47 massive warships adjusted their positions, preparing for the final assault. Here they come, Greg Turner said from his station. His voice was steady despite the fear Daniel could see in his eyes. Troop carriers launching. I count 200 landing craft. Each one can hold about 50 soldiers based on our scans. 10,000 troops, Peter calculated, against our 200 trained fighters and maybe 1,000 untrained civilians who want to help. Numbers don't tell the whole story, Nicole Adams said. She stood near the tactical display, studying the Catharn approach vectors. We've got home ground advantage. We know this city. They don't. We've got the tunnels. They don't even know the tunnels exist. Elder Sevan stood beside Daniel, his crystalline body pulsing with nervous energy. This is it then, the end of 200 years of waiting. Not the end, Daniel corrected. The fight. There's a difference. The first Catharn landing craft touched down in the city's central plaza. The same plaza where the Horizon's Edge had landed just days ago. Ramps dropped, and Catharn soldiers poured out. They were massive creatures, 8 feet tall, covered in thick armor that looked like it was part of their bodies. They carried weapons that crackled with energy. They're confident, Greg observed. Look at their formation, loose, casual. They think this is already over. Then let's teach them otherwise, Daniel said. Adams, you're up. In Tunnel Section 7, Nicole crouched behind a crystal barrier with 20 Valurian fighters. They held the hybrid pulse rifles Richard had made, their faces set with determination. Above them, Catharn soldiers moved through the streets, checking buildings, securing positions. Remember your training, Nicole whispered. The Valurians could hear her through their communication devices. More importantly, they could share her words telepathically with every other fighter in the tunnel network. Let them get comfortable. Let them think they're safe. Then we hit them hard and fast. A young Valurian named Telrin nodded. He was one of Nicole's best students, learning human tactics with frightening speed. "We are ready, Sergeant Adams." The Catharn patrol moved directly over their position. 12 soldiers, weapons lowered, talking amongst themselves in their harsh language. They thought the Valurians had surrendered, thought the city was empty. "Now," Nicole said. The crystal floor beneath the Catharn patrol shattered. Valurian fighters rose up through the opening, weapons firing. The hybrid pulse rifles made a sound like thunder. Solid rounds wrapped in energy fields punched through Catharn armor. The soldiers dropped before they could even raise their weapons. "Back in the tunnels," Nicole ordered. "Move, move, move!" The Valurians dropped back through the floor. The crystal reformed behind them, looking undamaged. By the time other Catharn squads arrived to investigate, the ambush team was already half a mile away, preparing their next strike. This pattern repeated across the city. Catharn patrols would push into what seemed like empty streets. Then the ground would open, or walls would slide apart, and Valurian fighters would attack from nowhere. After each strike, they vanished back into the tunnel network before the enemy could respond. In the command center, Daniel watched it all unfold. "How are they reacting?" "Confused," Greg reported. "They're tightening their formations, moving more carefully. Some squads are refusing to advance without heavy support." "Good. Keep the pressure on. I want them paranoid. I want them jumping at shadows." Jake Sullivan sat in the pilot's seat of a modified Valurian fighter craft. The ship was small, fast, and now equipped with human weapon systems. Around him, 9 other pilots prepared for launch. 8 Valurians and 1 more human, Lieutenant Chris Bennett, who served as the Horizon's Edge's navigator, but had trained as a combat pilot years ago. "Remember the plan," Chris said over the comm. "We're not trying to destroy those capital ships. We're trying to embarrass them, hit their sensor arrays, their communication hubs, make them look stupid." "Understood," one of the Valurian pilots replied. Her name was Silra, and she flew with a grace that made Chris jealous. "We strike and fade." The small fighters launched from hidden bays in the city's outer walls. They screamed up through the atmosphere, approaching the Catharn blockade at speeds the enemy had not expected from Valurian craft. The warships began to track them, but too slowly. Jake lined up his first target, a sensor array on the nearest capital ship. He fired a burst from his hybrid weapons. The rounds punched through the array's protective housing. The sensor exploded in a shower of sparks. "That's one," he said, moving to target 2. Around him, the other pilots struck their own targets. Communication dishes, weapon tracking systems, shield generators, nothing critical. Nothing that would destroy the ships, but enough to hurt, enough to humiliate. The Catharn fighters launched to intercept, but the modified Valurian craft were already diving back toward the planet. They scattered, using the atmosphere to break sensor locks, disappearing into clouds and canyons. "All pilots returned safely," Chris reported. "0 losses. Enemy is very angry based on the chatter we're picking up." In the city, the ground assault was not going well for the Catharn. Commander Vraxel stood in what should have been a command post, staring at casualty reports. In 6 hours of fighting, he had lost 300 soldiers. 300. Against a supposedly defeated enemy. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Our intelligence said the Valurians were scientists, artists, not warriors." His second officer, a scarred veteran named Krelix, studied the tactical displays. "They have help. These ambush tactics are not Valurian. Someone taught them how to fight." "The ship that landed days ago. The one we detected briefly before it disappeared." "Yes, Commander. We believe they are still here, still helping the Valurians." Vraxel's rage was cold and focused. "Find them. Find whoever is helping these creatures. I want them brought to me alive. I want to make an example that will terrify every species in this galaxy." Back in the command center, Dr. Morgan worked frantically on something she had discovered in the Valurian archives. "Captain, I think I found something. The Valurians have an old planetary defense weapon. Ancient. They deactivated it centuries ago because they thought they'd never need it." "Can we reactivate it?" Daniel asked. "Maybe. Richard is already down there with their engineers. It's going to take time, though. The power systems are completely drained. We need to reroute energy from the entire city grid." "How long?" 2 days. Maybe 3. "We might not have 3 days," Peter said. He pointed at the displays. "The Ketharn are adapting. They're bringing in heavy armor, tanks, walkers, things that won't care about our ambushes." Daniel made a decision. "Turner, I want you to take a team to that defense installation. Help Morgan and Cole get it working. Adams, keep the pressure on the ground forces. Make them too scared to advance. Sullivan and Bennett, I want constant raids on the fleet above. Keep them distracted." "What are you going to do, sir?" Peter asked. "I'm going to talk to Commander Vraxel. I'm going to make him an offer." "What kind of offer?" "The kind that makes him so angry he stops thinking clearly." An hour later, Amanda Shaw managed to hack into the Ketharn command frequency. Daniel's voice broadcast across every enemy channel, in every Ketharn ship, and every soldier's communicator. "Commander Vraxel, this is Captain Daniel Wright of the human vessel Horizon's Edge. I'm the one teaching the Valurians how to fight. I'm the one responsible for your dead soldiers. I'm the reason your mighty fleet is being embarrassed by a civilization you thought would surrender without a fight." In his command post, Vraxel froze. His officers stared at the communicator in shock. "I have a message for you, Commander. The Valurians are not alone anymore. They have allies now. Allies who don't abandon their friends when things get difficult. So here's my offer. Leave this system. Right now. Turn your fleet around and go find easier prey. Because if you stay, we're going to make you regret it." Vraxel's voice came back, full of fury. "You dare threaten me? You and one small ship? I will hunt you through every tunnel in this city. I will make you watch as I execute every Valurian. And then I will find your homeworld and do the same to your people." "You can try," Daniel said calmly. "But first you have to survive what we're about to do to you." "What can you possibly do that will make a difference?" Daniel smiled. "You'll see. Turner now." At the ancient defense installation, Greg Turner threw the final switch. Power surged through systems that had been dormant for centuries. On the surface, hidden beneath crystal structures, a massive weapon came to life. The Ketharn flagship, the largest ship in the blockade, suddenly found itself in the crosshairs of an energy beam powerful enough to crack a moon. The beam fired. The flagship's shields held for exactly 3 seconds. Then they failed. The beam punched through the hull, setting off a chain reaction in the ship's power core. The entire vessel exploded in a fireball that lit up the planet's sky. On every Ketharn frequency, Daniel's voice came again. "Still want to stay, Commander? Because that weapon has enough power for 46 more shots, 1 for each of your remaining ships." That was a lie. The weapon had barely enough power for 2 more shots, but Vraxel didn't know that. The Ketharn fleet began to move, not attacking, pulling back, retreating to a safer distance. In the command center, the humans and Valurians watched in stunned silence. They had done the impossible. They had made the Ketharn afraid. The Ketharn fleet stayed at a distance for 3 days. They did not attack. They did not leave. They just watched, trying to figure out if the Valurians really had enough power to destroy all their ships. Daniel used those 3 days well. He put every available person to work strengthening defenses, training more fighters, and preparing for the next assault, because everyone knew it was coming. The Ketharn did not retreat. They regrouped. On the 4th day, something unexpected happened. Amanda Shaw rushed into the command center, her face flushed with excitement. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission, not from the Ketharn, from someone else." "Who?" Daniel asked. They say they're from the Thessian Republic, one of the civilizations the Valurians contacted for help 200 years ago. The view screen activated. A reptilian face appeared, with golden scales and intelligent green eyes. The creature wore what looked like a military uniform. "I am Admiral Corseth of the Thessian Republic Defense Fleet," the alien said. His translated voice was formal, careful. "We have been monitoring the situation in the Valurian system. We witnessed your defense against the Catharn. We witnessed your destruction of their flagship." "Are you here to help or lecture us?" Peter asked bluntly. Corseth's eyes narrowed. "We are here because we are ashamed. 200 years ago, the Valurians asked for our help. We refused because we feared the Catharn. We told ourselves that non-interference was wise policy, that we could not risk our own people for another civilization. But you were wrong," Elder Savan said quietly. He had joined them in the command center. "Yes, we were wrong. And we have been wrong for 2 centuries. But you, humans, you who have barely left your own solar system, you answered when no one else would. You chose to fight when fighting seemed hopeless. And you have done what we thought impossible. You made the Catharn hesitate." "How many ships did you bring?" Daniel asked. 5. It is all we could gather on short notice. It is not much, but it is what we can offer." 5 ships appeared on the scanners, moving to position themselves near the planet. They were not as large as Catharn capital ships, but they were well-armed and carried the design of a civilization that had been spacefaring for thousands of years. "Why now?" Daniel asked. "Why after all this time?" Corseth looked uncomfortable. "Because our people saw the broadcasts. Your communications with Commander Vraxel were intercepted by our listening posts. They spread through our networks. Citizens began demanding to know why we did nothing when the Valurians called for help. Why we stood by and let the Catharn grow stronger. Your actions have created what we could not. Shame enough to force action." Over the next week, more ships arrived. Not many, just a few at a time. 3 vessels from the Mordani Collective, 2 from a civilization called the Yentar Unity, even a single ship from the Zelvan, who claimed they were acting against their government's orders. None of them brought fleets, none of them brought armies, but they came, and their presence changed everything. Commander Vraxel found himself facing not just one weak human ship and the Valurians, but an ad hoc coalition of different species. Still not enough to match his fleet in pure numbers, but enough to make victory costly, enough to make him think twice. In the command center, Daniel met with the other captains via holographic conference. They were a strange mix of species, all looking uncomfortable. None of them wanted to be there, but they were there anyway. "The Catharn will attack soon," Admiral Corseth said. "They cannot afford to retreat. It would show weakness to every species they have conquered." "Then we make them pay for attacking," Daniel said. "We've been preparing for this. Turner, show them the plan." Greg brought up a tactical display. It showed the Valurian city, the tunnel network, and positions for all the Allied ships. "We use the tunnels for guerrilla warfare on the ground. The Allied fleet engages the Catharn capital ships, drawing their attention. Meanwhile, our fighters target their support vessels, supply ships, command ships. We don't try to destroy the fleet, we try to make them unable to function as a fleet." A Mordani captain, whose species looked like walking plants, spoke up. "This is not conventional warfare." "No," Daniel agreed. "It's human warfare. We learned a long time ago that when you can't win fair, you win dirty." "I do not understand this concept of winning dirty," the Zelvan captain said. "It means we fight to survive, not to look honorable doing it. It means we use every advantage, every trick, every tactic that gives us an edge. The Catharn think they know how battles work. We're going to teach them they're wrong." The Allied captains looked at each other. Then, one by one, they nodded. They had come this far. They might as well go all the way. The Catharn attacked 2 days later with everything they had. The entire fleet moved into attack formation. Vraxel was done waiting. He would crush this resistance and make an example that would terrify the galaxy for generations. The battle began in orbit. The Catharn capital ships opened fire on the Allied fleet. The Thessian ships took the brunt of the assault, their shields flaring under the impact, but they held, and they fired back. Meanwhile, the human and Valurian fighters launched from hidden bays, hundreds of them, far more than the Catharn expected. They swarmed through the battlefield like angry insects, targeting everything except the capital ships. Jake Sullivan flew his fighter with absolute focus, dodging enemy fire, weaving through explosions. He targeted a Catharn supply vessel, punching holes in its hull. Behind him, Silra and other Valurian pilots did the same to a command ship. On the ground, Catharn forces poured into the city, but this time they were ready for ambushes. They moved in tight formations, watching every corner, checking every shadow. It did not matter. Nicole Adams and her Valurian fighters had prepared new surprises. Entire buildings collapsed on Catharn squads, triggered by explosive charges. Streets opened into pits that dropped soldiers into tunnel networks where Valurian fighters waited. Energy traps powered by Valurian technology drained the power from Catharn armor, leaving soldiers helpless. The Catharn pushed forward anyway. They were used to grinding enemies down through sheer numbers and firepower. But for every street they captured, they lost a dozen soldiers. For every building they secured, another ambush struck from an unexpected angle. Dr. Morgan and Richard Cole worked desperately to keep the ancient defense weapon charged. They had managed 3 more shots, destroying 1 more Catharn capital ship and crippling 2 others. But the weapon's power cells were nearly empty now. "We can give you 1 more shot," Richard told Daniel. "Maybe 2 if we strip power from every other system in the city. After that, we're done." "Then make them count," Daniel said. In space, Admiral Corseth's flagship took a direct hit. The ship's shields failed and hull breaches opened across multiple decks. "We cannot hold much longer," he transmitted to Daniel. "You don't have to," Daniel replied. "Turner, target their command cluster. All remaining shots." The defense weapon fired 3 times in rapid succession. The beams lanced into space, targeting the group of Catharn command ships that Vraxel had positioned behind his main battle line. 2 ships exploded. The third, Vraxel's own vessel, lost all power. For a moment, the entire Catharn fleet seemed to freeze. Then chaos erupted in their formations as ship commanders lost contact with their fleet commander. "Now," Daniel said, "all ships full attack. Make them think we're stronger than we are." The Allied fleet surged forward. The fighters intensified their strikes. On the ground, every Valurian fighter launched coordinated attacks across the entire city. The Catharn fleet, leaderless and confused, began to pull back. It was not a full retreat, not yet, but it was hesitation, uncertainty, fear. In his disabled command ship, Vraxel watched his fleet fall apart. He had conquered 62 worlds. He had destroyed hundreds of civilizations. He had never, ever failed. Until today. Until 1 weak human ship and its stubborn captain had decided to answer a distress call. The Catharn fleet withdrew from the system 3 hours later. They did not surrender. They did not sue for peace. They simply left, taking their wounded vessels and their damaged pride with them. In the Valurian city, humans and Valurians and Thessians and Mordani and all the others stood in stunned silence. They had won, against impossible odds, against an empire that had never been defeated. They had won. Elder Sevan found Daniel standing alone in the plaza, looking up at the stars. The blockade was gone. For the first time in 2 centuries, the Valurian sky was free. "We owe you everything," Sevan said quietly. "You owe me nothing," Daniel replied. "You fought for yourselves. We just gave you a reason to believe you could. You did more than that. You answered when no one else would. Why? Your people barely know us. You gained nothing from helping us. You risked everything." Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Because you called for help. Because someone should answer. And because if we, as a species, can ignore a cry for help just because it's dangerous to respond, then what are we worth?" Sevan's crystalline body glowed brighter. "We have begun broadcasting a new message across the galaxy. Not a distress call, a message of hope. We tell other civilizations that if they are in trouble, they should not despair. Because somewhere out there, humans are listening, and humans answer." Daniel smiled. "You're going to get us killed. Every civilization in trouble is going to call us. We can't save everyone." "Perhaps not, but you will try. That is what makes you different. That is what makes you dangerous to empires like the Catharn. You make others believe they can fight back." The Horizon's Edge prepared to leave 3 days later. The ship was damaged but functional. The crew was exhausted but alive. They had orders from Earth Command to return immediately for debriefing. There was also a strongly worded message about unauthorized first contact and violation of non-interference protocols. But there was something else, too. A list. 18 distress signals that Earth's deep space listening posts had detected. 18 civilizations calling for help. Captain Wright stood on the bridge, looking at that list. His crew gathered around him. They all knew what he was thinking. "Earth Command says we should come home," Peter said. "They say we've done enough." "Have we?" Daniel asked. Amanda pulled up the distress signals. Each one was a civilization in trouble. Some were under attack like the Valurians had been. Some were facing disasters. Some were simply alone and scared. "We can't save all of them," Lisa Morgan said. But her voice said she wanted to try anyway. "Maybe not," Daniel agreed. "But we can answer. We can at least let them know someone heard them, someone cares enough to try." Nicole Adams grinned. "So which one first, Captain?" Daniel studied the list. Then he pointed at one of the signals. "That one. It's the closest. And according to the translation, they've been calling for help for 50 years. "Setting course," Jake Sullivan said, his hands already moving over the controls. As the Horizon's Edge turned toward its next destination, none of the crew knew that they had started something that would change the galaxy forever. They did not know that Earth would be both praised and cursed for what they had done. They did not know that the Catharn Empire had marked humanity as enemy number one. All they knew was that someone had cried for help, and humans, despite every logical reason not to, had chosen to answer. In the depths of space, the old Valurian distress signal finally went silent. But a new message replaced it, a message that spread from system to system, from species to species, a message that gave hope to the oppressed and fear to the oppressors. The message was simple. We cried for help. Only humans answered. If you are in darkness, do not despair. They are coming. And in the heart of the Catharn Empire, the Emperor listened to that message and made a decision. Humanity was a disease that threatened everything his empire had built. They made the weak believe they could resist. They made the conquered think they could fight back. Such a disease had to be eliminated. The war between humanity and the Catharn Empire had begun, not because humans sought conquest, not because they wanted power, but because they had done something no other civilization would do. They had answered a cry for help, and in doing so, they had become the greatest threat to tyranny the galaxy had ever known.